Wealthy Experts, where we are bringing on experts in their field to help us build effectively a wealthy life. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Wealthy Experts. And today I have Pete Steele. Pete has been around the blocks for quite a while. You can probably see that from the gray hairs, but he has had an exceptional career at CBA, one of the senior executives, head of digital transformation and digital products. He then moved to Boston Consulting Group and then has since created a business called True Savings. Peter and I have been doing a little bit of work together, and their business really is transformative. And if you haven't already heard of it, you certainly will over the next couple of years. Now, I've been very interested to get him on the podcast today to talk about his experiences, some of the things that he's seeing in the market. And it is probably a very topical time at the moment. But Pete, thank you for joining us on the show today.
Yeah, great to be here, Tom. Thanks for having me. And it did used to be, when I first got a little bit, it was a little bit of salt in the pepper, as the way it was described to me. And now I seem to have come back after my COVID shaved head with just a lot of salt now, unfortunately. But that's fine. It's part of getting older.
Mate, it's okay. You got to cherish those moments. Charlotte follows me around with tweezers trying to pluck them out. I'm like, just
that's how it starts.
I mean, you've had quite the lucrative career, and many people would be blessed to have gone through many experiences that you have and to get to such heights. Can you kind of give us a roundabout story or a direct path, however you'd like to tell us, about how you've come to land at creating True Savings and sort of the culmination of events that brought you here?
Yeah, for sure. Happy to. I have had a really wonderful career and continue to have so as well. I've always been a techie at heart and always been really fascinated by business problems. But the thing, I'm about to talk about where I've been with big banks, but the thing that I've loved most, I've found, is working with great teams and great people and using tech to help customers, like genuinely where you can feel you're making a difference in customers' lives. So about 17 years ago, I was lucky enough to join CBA, started working for an executive there, made my way up through the ranks there. And for the last 7 years, I was running digital, which was the mobile app. We built that, NetBank and all the innovation. And it was really a fantastic role. And many people thought I was crazy for leaving. But I got to the point where I was so happy with what we've been able to do for customers. And I loved working with the teams I was with, but I was starting to get a little bit flat. And I wanted to do more to help people. And I felt there's a window of time where the things I'd learned, the skills I had, and the way I can pull a team together and use tech to help customers, I had a window of opportunity to do that. And I thought there's nothing more important than home loans, at least financially in Australia. And I could see for all the time I had at the bank, they do a wonderful job helping customers put them into home loans, but they don't always do as good a job making sure they're on a keen price and really having their needs met. So I thought there's a big space out there for us to play. So I set up the team in the middle of the pandemic, which is a bit crazy. Set up the team. We did some fundraising. I've got some wonderful angel investors who have helped me with advice as well as investment. And set the team up January this year. We've been running hard at it. So what is it now? Just the start of October. And it's been crazy working in a pandemic. We were in person together for a little while there in the 3 or 4 months in July timeframe, but then it all closed down again. So it's all been remote, which is a bit tough. But no, we're running really fast and really excited to be working with Wealthi and others to really help customers.
So, I mean, it's interesting that you have done what you've done. It takes a lot of bravery for anyone to go out and start a business, particularly during a pandemic, particularly if you're coming out of such an established and well-defined career. Did you feel all the nervousness? Was there a sense of excitement? How did you muster the courage to go and do something like this? I mean, there's a passion for helping the client, certainly, but what you've managed to do is recruit a great team around you very, very quickly, but you've also got to get an idea and bring people along on that vision. Sort of work me through that kind of that sensation. Many people, they say, I should have done it when I was 20. and I could take a risk, but you've got a family, you've got kids, you've got things that you've got a lot of responsibility. Was it any harder? Work me through that kind of process.
Yeah, I've always been happy to take some level of risk in my life. When I was 25, my wife and I quit our consulting jobs and flew over to the UK. We literally cashed, you could do it at that time, we cashed in our superannuation and bought airline tickets and went halves in her engagement ring, flew over to the UK without jobs. And we found jobs in the first couple of weeks there. So, yeah, and that worked out pretty well. We came back and had kids. So I recommend everyone is prepared to take some risk. I've got some really good mentors though. And so I bounced around what I was thinking with a couple of them. And similar to what you're asking, the two of them in particular were really encouraging about, you'll get a much greater upside if you're prepared to take some risk, but there's always fallback options as well. But so far I feel it's one of the best decisions I've ever made. Like the customer response has been fantastic. The working with the teams, more exciting than even the wonderful job I had at CBA. So I don't think people, feel complacent when they're in a big career job, but a lot of them have an itch that they can do something more and swing for the fences. And certainly that's how I feel. And so, it's been wonderful and I've had great support. And I think we're just getting started. Like there's so much opportunity to help people in Australia.
And that's a really good point, because I really do feel like there is an opportunity to help so many Australians. I mean, property is, I think, one of the largest wealth generators for Australians as a whole. Yeah. It's worth $9 trillion or something, and it makes up 70-80% of household wealth. And it is mismanaged more often than not without the right support. Now, the news today is that APRA is coming out and they're making, servicing a little bit harder. They're increasing that assessment rate to 3% instead of 2.5%. How do you think that that's going to impact your space? Do you think it's going to make it even more important for people to talk to you, or do you see there's going to be a massive impact or change in the market, or, what's sort of bubbling away in your mind when you read that article this morning?
I think it's really profound because it's the start of regulatory intervention, which is, while at face value, the amount of the increase in the buffer, it's negligible because the big banks, most of them have been operating at that level that APRA is now mandating anyway. Not the alternate lenders, but the big banks have. So immediate impact, negligible, but actually the signal it's sending, which is they're going to start to take steps to maintain an orderly housing market's really important, because all good investors and homeowners, you want some level of sustained growth. You don't want a bubble or anything. And it doesn't feel like that at all, but making responsible lending decisions, everybody has got, vested interest in that. So the banks, they want to lend well to customers who can afford it. People like my business wants to help customers make sure they make good investments, borrow the right way for the family home or for a property, investment property. So I think overall, it's a sign of a couple of things. It's certainly a hot market. And so like any hot market, they want to make sure it continues a controlled climb rather than get spiky. It talks, I think that is the first of several changes they'll probably go into, but there's a level of energy in the market, and maybe it might result in some customers having some anxiety. Am I going to miss out? Do I have to move quicker? Certainly my advice is to talk to experts like Wealthi and like True to say, what's the right sort of vehicles to invest in or to borrow for, get the right sort of repayment structure, not go in too deep, not overcommit, but make sure it's a really good plan for the future that's sustainable. And that's what the regulators want. That's what good home loan brokers like us want, to make sure that customers are set up well for the future.
It's a really good point that you've made there, that, we did the math, it's negligible. There's not a lot in that. And you're right, many of the main banks are already assessing people at higher rates. The message that it sends is very important. And Peter and I were saying that we feel it may be the first of a few other changes that will come. It always starts very, very slowly, and then it kind of escalates. And if we're going to think about something most recently and close to all of us, it started with a 2-week lockdown, and then it became 3 weeks, and then it became 3 months. So you don't make changes all at once. It happens very, very gradual.
Yeah.
And I like how you've taken that, and actually I didn't think about it in the way that people, the sophisticated borrowers out there, may in fact now bring their borrowing forward, because it is a sign of things to come, and it will get harder for people to go and get loans down the road. Do you think it's going to get a lot harder?
I don't think it'll get a lot harder. I think it's creating a level of immunity or buffer as well, not just the current strong market, but also for potential interest rate increases eventually as well. That's what the RBA most cares about, making sure that people can continue to pay their loans in the future. I think it's a very good sign, though, as well, for your community, for investors. It's a sign of responsible management by the government as well, in partnership with the major lenders. And so in the next few years, a few interventions here and there, again, you want this orderly, steady increase in asset values. And so interventions like this, I think, are should be really well received by good investors, because they realize, if we're seeing a strong market when we're locked down and the borders aren't open, you don't want it to get the rate of increase to get much stronger too quickly. So you want an orderly increase. And I think it's a real positive sign that the banks and the government are working towards that. And so, I think it's really positive.
And this is another good point. Many, I jump into the YouTube comments. So this is a quick note for all of you watching, listening. If you're liking what we're doing, leave a comment. If you disagree or have any further questions, put it in the comments below so Peter and I can dive into them. But many of the comments do come back to saying, well, interest rates are going to hit 6% or 7%, or, we are in a bubble environment. They think about the financial crisis of 2008 and the responsible lending, or the irresponsible lending that happened in America. And this is, I think, the perfect example of how Australia is run differently to other countries. And in many ways, we run, essentially an oligarchy. There are 4 major banks. I don't say that with any venom, but just there are people that are running the country from a banking level. They do talk to each other. They talk to the government, and it allows for them to make these small and subtle tweaks along the way, so that it can be, as you said, a more orderly growth and not something that's spirals out of control with too many people and mixed messaging.
Yeah, exactly. And I've studied overseas banks and the Australian market as well. I think the Australian market's largely very well run. The majors, like us in particular, and a couple of the regulators. And you can see, compared to world performance, there's been times other parts of the world have got overheated, didn't take the right intervention. So I think that's a real positive for Australia. With my, as you point out, grey hair, I do remember, I was a kid, but I remember there was 17% interest rates at one stage, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. And I don't think we'll ever see them again. But when you're in a certain phase of whether it's stock markets or housing cycle, it's always hard to see the change. But low interest rates, eventually they will go up again. It might only be 1 or 2%, because it's going to be a function of world funding markets as well. But I think when we're in a state of high demand like this, it is real positive. It's particularly Sydney and Melbourne, not limited to, but they're wonderful cities. A lot of people want to live in Sydney and Melbourne. So you're seeing increased rates of demand. So, same with parts of Queensland as well. I think it's sustained demand. I don't think we're any chance of being in a bubble, though. It's just hot because there's a lot of people who want to either investment exposure or to live in those environments. And the trick is for the regulators and the banks and all of us to be responsible to manage increased demand over the years. Immigration starts to open up again, and make sure it just continues on that lovely upward trajectory that is certainly good for asset appreciation for all of us.
So I want to move to the next topic. Before we do, though, are there any sort of parting thoughts or any words of wisdom that you can, knowing where we are in the cycle and seeing that we are in this low interest rate environment, that regulation is starting to come in and interest rates may start to increase, have you got any hints or tips for the audience about how they should be responding, thinking about the market today and now, and how they should come in and do something about it, how they can take control?
Look, it's a little bit of a self-serving plug, but for both, I think for the audience, for the community, to talk to businesses like both of ours, which a sustainable business is based on helping customers think about their decisions the right way, whether investment decisions, lending for investments or for their existing property, refinancing. I've learned, like if I had my time again, I certainly would have made different property investment decisions earlier and more often in my life, and our family's investment portfolio. It's good, but it could have been a lot better. But getting advice to make sure, credit advice to make sure you don't overcommit, you manage, but you don't miss opportunities as well. It's invaluable. So don't always believe, taxi drivers are great. Don't always believe what you hear on the street. Talk to an expert, and they have your best interests at heart and will help you set things up right.
Yeah, I agree there. And talk to many experts. Talk to True. Talk to CBA. Talk to a few. Get an opinion. See who you feel actually has their best interests at heart, or your best
you can
interests
trust, and who you've got a rapport, and who you want to be there with you in a couple more years as well, and keep doing business together.
So on that note, what is your definition of wealth, or building a wealthy life, or having a wealthy life? How do you think about wealth, and how you try and manifest it in your life?
My definition of that would probably maybe a little bit more traditional Italian, Mediterranean Italian, which is having financial freedom so that you can then spend your time on what really matters. So being able to save enough and have diversified investments that are returning, so that in my case, I don't have to be slave to a 9 to 5 or a 6 to 9 p.m. career job constantly. People want to spend time in the sunshine with their family, with friends, doing some sport, having choices, because time is precious. And so my definition of wealth is getting yourself to a point before too late in life, where you can actually be thoughtful as to how you spend your time on what really matters. And maybe it's a slightly rose-colored glasses view of the world, but I think anyone who can get to that point through hard work and saving and diversified investments, it's a wonderful place to be.
I just want to challenge you on this point, because I know that you're process oriented, you've worked hard, and you have built something for yourself. Assuming you get to this point, do you think you're ever just going to turn off the keys and walk away? Or is there a piece of you that's going to keep on working? And how does that, because the reason why I ask this point is because I feel like very generally I hear this answer, and I think about it myself, and I have had luxuries where I could turn off the keys and walk away or slow down, but maybe it's stage in life or career and whatever, and it's a lot of people working from home, so we can choose to live a more fulfilling life, or whatever that means. So do you think that you would just walk away off into the sunset and start tanning and drinking mojitos?
I didn't articulate that well. I would never. I love work and I love what I do. It's more, it would alleviate the sense of have to work, and you can allocate more time. In my case, I love sport, love my family. You can allocate more time to that. And again, it might be a latter stage career thing. But I'd like to be able to shift gears rather than turn off the engine, is how I think about it. But I think people who are genuinely passionate in their work lives, they want a level of carry through like that. And I saw a good article the other day, the kind of your focus changes a bit, certainly in my career stage. A lot of the emphasis becomes about helping others as well, individual performance, team, but just coaching and mentoring and passing on a little bit of the wisdom as well. So getting time, for me, getting to a point where I can do those things that I choose to do versus what I have to do from a classic career salary earning, I think that's a great place to be.
Yeah, it's that Maslow hierarchy of needs. Starting at the bottom, put a roof over your head and food, shelter, and as you move up the hierarchy, you can start to sort of self-actualize, and then it's about helping other people around you.
Which is fantastic. And actually, you find after a while, you get enough material, get enough investment results, but then after a while, you get real joy from helping others. So anyway, that's my personal definition of and it's vastly different than what I would have answered 30 years ago. But as you say, it's the journey I've been on.
And what's the one thing that we could all do or change today that we could live a wealthier life, or accelerate our career to having a wealthier life or getting to that point? What's something that, you do religiously that, or that you've seen or done over the past 30 years that you said, hey, that's the thing that really helped me build the wealthier life that I've got today?
Everyone's got their own saving philosophy. I'll give you a couple of quick answers rather than one. I certainly, my wife's parents are Croatian background, and they were always talking about, you want land, or you want property, you want bricks. They didn't understand the stock market, but they were very traditional. They paid cash. They always negotiated, and they wanted, to make sure we were getting some bricks and land early. And so I think there's actually a lot of truism in that. Certainly my tip is having diversified investments is really good. Having investments is really good of various sorts. But savings, people regularly, when I was earning different profile to what I'm earning now in my own startup, when I was earning a career salary at CBA, I was guilty of not being as careful with spending as I should have been. And so, it takes discipline, but just regularly checking where the money's going, looking at the credit card statements. What's that line? It actually adds up quite a lot over a couple of years. And so having that discipline, and of course, certainly I encourage people nowadays, the home loan's the most expensive product that we have in most of our lives, or in various mortgages. And I paid the loyalty tax for way too long, even though I was a CBA executive, and then I just took for granted that they were looking after me. But nowadays I see, we all overpay on that. So just having an eye to the detail of spending patterns is probably the thing I didn't do as well as I should have. But respecting the power of investment over the years is, that traditional wisdom really holds true today, I think, as well.
So it sounds like the details matter. When I'm listening to you, I hear it's pay attention to the little things, because over time they accumulate, and whether that's your spending habits, saving habits, and your investment habits.
Yeah, that's spot on.
Yeah, that's really important. And is there anything recently? I mean, do you read often, listen to audiobooks, and is there anything in there that you've seen, heard, a word of wisdom that recently got passed on to you, or even historically has been passed on to you, some kind of philosophy that you live by that you could pass on to all of us?
I don't think I've got wise philosophy. This is a once in a generation event, this whole pandemic thing that's been going on, and it's horrendous and horrible. And anyone who's been impacted by it, and many of my friends have their families, often elderly people in their families, impacted. So it's awful. It is also a learning opportunity as well. Not to be political, I'm not into politics, but I thought Gladys, excellent leader. Resilience and leadership is probably the thing I've focused a lot on lately, and just the role of leaders, business leaders, small business, large businesses. And it changes even more so than ever to be less about you, but more about who's around you, and how are you helping them in these tough times. So, and then there's various leadership books and authors who I think do a much better job of articulating that than I do. But I just look at some of it can be small examples of the small corner store, or the manufacturing business, the cafes, or again, political leaders. You get such a range of responses in an incredibly tough time like this. And resilience, positivity, care for others, and an eye to the future, as well as dealing with the current tough situation. They're the things that I've got out of the last 2 years, which is an unprecedented learning opportunity, if nothing else.
And you mentioned leadership books. Is there anything that you've read or seen or heard? Is there anything that we could literally dive into today and pick it up and say, oh, Pete's, gotten that from this book? Or I'm putting you on the spot.
I read a lot. Probably the one that's easiest to consume, less a book. Simon Sinek, or Sinek, I really like his everything from quick digestible quotes to some of his books are really powerful. This concept of the leader eats last, and how you help others, and the mantle that you carry and the shadow you cast as a leader in any form. It can be, again, small business, and the effect you have on others, how you serve them, or it can be a large business in the way you respond selflessly in helping your team and customers. So I rate him highly in his work, and so that's a great starting point.
Simon Sinek is really good. And I like your attention to leadership. And I talk about this all the time with my team, with my family, with my friends. I feel like people don't appreciate, and it sounds a bit woo woo, but we really all are leaders in a way. People look to you in one way or another. And the way that you hold yourself is such an important way to sort of project. It's an important way to hold yourself to a standard that you be cognizant that people are looking to you, and don't underestimate the value of what you speak and the way that you act. And
That's exactly right. Yeah.
yeah,
It takes effort. We're all intrinsically good people, but we have sometimes reactions to preserve self or run from the tough stuff. And so it takes quite a mental effort to shift yourself to genuinely acting for others' best interest first in every fight or flight opportunity from a business leader. And then also being conscious of the shadow you cast. One of my bosses used to tell me, you're always on. Sometimes I'd look at my phone when I was in a meeting, or an offhand comment or something. And he said, you've got to remember people are taking signals from you, and the way you act sends the signal of what's okay or how others should respond. So having that mindset for whatever role we're in life or business, I think is really important.
It's a good point, because it shapes you. When you take it, what it does, I feel like it almost makes me personally think about myself outside myself. I think about other people more than inside, and it in a way causes you to become selfless, and it helps you to become more responsible in your daily interactions. And I know that it's helped me navigate situations better than I would have if I'd just been internally motivated and listened to what my first response would have been, which isn't necessarily the right one.
Well, look, it's taken me about 30 years longer than it's taken you. But yeah, that's I think that self-actualization journey that we all need to be on.
Look, it's easy to talk philosophy. It's a different thing when, you get yelled at for not taking out the washing or something, and then the animal inside reacts.
Yeah, for sure.
And this part, I want to move on to talking about selflessness and how we can help others. How can you help the audience today? Like, how specifically, what can people come to you to ask you for help for? What's your little area of expertise, or where are your team really flying high, or what can we reach out and ask for help from you?
Yeah, great. So we're very focused on helping people with their mortgages, but in creating a really new way to do that, because I described today as the whole mortgage industry. It's hugely important for Australia, and for individual families, for the economy, but it's quite polarized between traditional mortgage brokers, which many of them do a great job, phone call, a lot of paperwork, that sort of thing, and some online websites as well. But when we started building our platform, we did a lot of customer research and interaction. We realized that people want to talk to other people in some way to get help and expertise. I was talking to a customer yesterday, and he said, look, I'm a visual person. I need to see the shape of things to help me understand my choices. And that was a great customer. So we've invented a platform. We're all about mortgages and helping customers save money or get the right deal, the best deal. But our platform allows a connection remotely like this, but inside a browser, no Teams or Zoom or anything like that. And our experts are on demand available to help customers. And we use market pricing to help them understand the very best options out there. But often investments and even your own property, owner occupied, requires some thinking around structures and choices. And so that's where this whole visual element comes in. And customers have loved it. They've understood, got this clarity in times they haven't had in the past as well, because mortgages are quite confusing and intimidating. And then we help customers, and then we obviously help them get into the best product in the market and manage it well as well, so that they keep saving year after year. So I think the thought provoker would be, if I'm investing or if I've got an existing loan, or even that first home buyer, we're at truesavings.com. And it's a really easy to use website. Our experts connect through it. And, it's a terrible time with the pandemic, but the remote access that we've all got now, I think we kind of landed the right proposition where many people are going to be happy dealing remotely or expect that super convenience. So we bring together all the data and experts and convenience all in one platform.
And I don't want to pigeonhole you right now, but I do want to say it feels like to me, if you are out there watching, listening, and you are a visual person and you want to be able to see how things come out, people get scared, intimidated by mortgages. A lot of numbers, there's data, percentages, and there's lots of different moving bits. I'm very visual. I love getting a piece of paper, drawing pictures, whiteboards, all that kind of stuff. It's almost like a tactile experience. So it feels to me like you've created a tactile experience and been able to better visualize how things are moving around. So it feels like anyone out there that is of that sort of mindset, that is very visual, definitely reach out to you. But certainly you can help anybody. And how can we help you? I mean, what's happening in your life at the moment? What should we be reaching out to help you with? One of the guys said he needed furniture on the show, and we've had a whole host of different requests. What's bubbling away in your world that we can serve you in?
Oh, it's very kind. I haven't really thought about that. I think we got a shared interest, your organization and mine, in helping customers capitalize on property and save money. So I think continually helping educate each other's customers bases, I think, is really important. I'm really impressed with the academy and the work that you guys have been doing at Wealthi. So so I think some shared education, helping lift knowledge in the market's really good. But other than that, you can just get vaccinated and help me get everyone get to opening next week in New South Wales, or their first opening in Sydney. And I just can't wait to get out and play some sport. I play golf, and as one of my sports. And so just in some sunshine next week, if you could organise that. And I'm really looking forward to getting out there and eating out again.
Cool. So your message to the audience is go get vaccinated because you want to get back out and play golf.
Get vaccinated. Check your home loan at truesavings.com. Talk to Wealthi and True about future investments, and be good to each other as we open up.
Cool. Pete, thank you very much for the show today. I really enjoyed talking to you. It's great catching
Likewise,
up.
Dom.
And I'm enjoying our collaboration. For all of you that are out there, watching and enjoyed the show, like it, leave comments, all that normal stuff. Send it to 100 of your friends. And again, if you've got any questions, just reach out, let us know. Otherwise, have an amazing week. And I look forward to chatting you all in the next show, in the next episode.
Thanks a lot, Dom.